Hi, everyone. This is Summer. She's a type 1 diabetic who just graduated from Cornell University. Fun fact, she was also my camp counselor at Clara Barton Camp a few years ago, and I'm so happy that she's able to help me out with this interview. So thank you, Summer.
Of course.
So this video is going to be a combination of interviewing Summer on her personal experience at college being a type 1 diabetic, and I'm also going to be interviewing Dr. Sophia Shapiro on how diabetics should prepare for college. So first question, what was one thing that surprised you when you first arrived at college, and was it hard adjusting?
I kind of knew what I was expecting going into college just because I had a lot of friends that had already been in college. But I think, especially being a type 1 diabetic, it was really hard. In high school, I was so used to if I needed anything, I could just go down to the nurse's office, like right down the hall, whereas that doesn't exist in college. So that was kind of crazy for me and overwhelming, but it also had a sense of freedom that was really exciting to me, being able to do it all on my own.
Yeah, that makes sense. Next question, how did you tell your roommate and people in general that you had diabetes, and how did they react? Are they understanding, or did they have a lot of questions?
So this is kind of unique for me because in high school, I was very nervous about telling people. I only told my closest friends. I hid my Omnipod and my CGM in high school. No one knew that I had diabetes besides my like best friends. So going into college, I kind of knew that since I'd be away from my family and everything, I knew that I had to definitely tell a lot more people than I had in high school. So when I was moving into my dorm first day of freshman year, I was filling my fridge with all my insulin and juice boxes. And my roommate was like, "What is all this stuff?" And I told her, and she was like super understanding of it and everything. And so the first night out of college, I wore my Omnipod on my arm to my first party, and everyone was asking me what it was. And I was telling them and explaining it to them. And I made sure to explain the difference between type 1 and type 2 because that was like my biggest fear in college, in high school, having people think that I had type 2 diabetes. So it went really well and everyone was super understanding, and it was like a big relief finally like having that over with.
Yeah, and I feel like that's good because you kind of like, I don't know, got confidence to do that, and then like you realized like it wasn't that big of a deal, and that
Yeah,
people really like just were curious. So yeah. So did you tell like your roommate and friends like how to use your glucagon pen or like the best scheme that we use now, just like in case of an emergency?
I've actually never used either of them, so I didn't think that it was important. Looking back on it, I probably should have just to be on the safer side of things, but I didn't tell anyone. I don't think the Buscemi existed when I was a freshman in college. Maybe it did. I didn't know about it, but I did have the glucagon with me, but I never told her how to use it. I just felt a little weird putting that pressure on her. Looking back on it, maybe it would have been the better thing to do, but I didn't tell her about it.
Yeah, I agree because I feel like you don't want to scare anyone, but like it is good like just in case. I haven't used it either, but like yeah, I feel like introducing them slowly to what diabetes is and then maybe doing it, that's a good way to approach it. I don't know, I feel like it depends on like the individual. So,
Mhm.
was your A1C affected after being in college?
I'd say right in the beginning, it was just adjusting to the schedule. It was so different than I had in high school. So I'd say a little bit it shot up, but after the first like few months, I got the hang of it and worked with my endo to adjust my insulin and carb ratios and everything like that. And then after a few months, it was back to normal, nothing crazy.
Because I know like you're either walking more to classes because that can affect it too, but you're also like eating different foods and like,
Mhm.
kind of figuring that out. So there's a lot of factors that can play into different things. So how did you handle partying and drinking like when you were of age, obviously? And do you have any advice or tips for that?
Yeah, definitely. Whenever I would drink alcohol, I would put on a temp basal because my blood sugar always seemed to go lower. I think that also might have been a combination of like the dancing at the parties and everything that I was doing. But I also would have a really carby snack like pasta or pizza, or like we had like a calzone place at my college near my dorm. So I would always have something like that and not bowls for it. And my blood sugar would be like 350 when I would go to bed. And then I would wake up perfect because my blood sugar would always go lower. So
Hmm. Yeah. Do you have any stories you want to share about college?
yeah, so like I said, freshman year I was super nervous about wearing my Omnipod on my arm. And one of the first nights out, I was at this fraternity party, And there was a bunch of older girls there that I was just like really intimidated by because I was going through sorority recruitment the next semester and I was so scared of the older girls. And she came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, do you have an Omnipod on your arm?" And I was like, "Yeah," like super scared. She was like going to ask me a million questions about it. And she like turned around and showed me the Omnipod on her arm. And then she like pushed her Omnipod onto mine. We did like an Omnipod like touch thing. It was so funny. And then we like took all these selfies with our Omnipods. It was so funny. And then I would always see her around campus and she would always wave to me and say hi. And she introduced me to all her friends. And then second semester when I rushed, I saw her at her sorority house and it was just like so great seeing her. And it was such a funny experience seeing someone else with the Omnipod.
Oh yeah, that's good. And that's like that goes to show like if you're not scared about hiding, like you can actually make good friends. Like even like at camp, we know like you make some of your best friends just like by bonding over like your diabetes. So that's great. That's a great story. Did you ever experience a situation when you went too high or too low, causing you to be hospitalized? I know you mentioned that you didn't have to use best scheme or anything, but do you have any like stories that happened or anything?
Yeah, I don't think I had any. Thankfully, I haven't had any bad experiences like that. A few times I would be low and I wouldn't like wake up from my Dexcom. So I would have my parents would call me and then I would get up, but that it was nothing like crazy. I would just be like in the 60s, just not hearing it because I feel like I kind of add it to like my dream and like incorporate
Yeah.
sounds into my dream, but nothing like ever very bad, thankfully.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I've noticed like sometimes when people go out, they normally just bring their phone and like as few things as possible. And I know that like we have to carry our like testing kit and like glucose tabs and stuff like that. So like when you went out to like a party or something, did you have like a bag that you use and like did you keep it near you? I know you don't like want to like put it down or anything. So like how did you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, so I wouldn't bring anything with me. I would have my phone, which would have my blood sugar on it through Dexcom. And then if like if it were to stop working, which thankfully it never did, I would just be pretty close to my dorm. So I never brought anything in terms of testing stuff. And then in terms of glucose tabs, I also didn't bring anything because all the parties would have like sodas or lemonades or things like that there that I would go low sometimes and I would just drink the soda
Mhm.
and then my blood sugar would go up. But I didn't really bring anything with me just because I never really had space for it and didn't want to lose anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually good. That's a good tip because I know there's like a lot that's like accessible to you that's like out, so you don't have to bring extra stuff.
Mhm.
So did you get extra time on exams and did you get any housing accommodations when you were first applying for like housing and academics?
In terms of housing, I didn't get anything just because I was reading reviews online. And if you like, in my college at least, if you like request something, sometimes you were put in a dorm that was like a little farther away or like, because the biggest thing was like the air conditioning. I think that a lot of diabetics were like nervous about in terms of like being able to have like your insulin cold and things like that and not have like your pump overheat and things like that. But I didn't have any housing accommodations. I didn't have air conditioning in my room and it ended up working out fine. It was only hot for like the first 2 weeks and last 2 weeks. So it was completely fine. And I had a mini fridge that I kept all my insulin in. And then in terms of exam accommodations, I didn't have any exam accommodations in college. At least for me, all of the exams were like 3 hours long and I did not need all that time. So if I ever was low, I would just have some glucose tabs, then just sit there and then wait to continue my exam. But you definitely could have gotten extra time if you wanted. I just didn't feel like going through the whole hassle of that and everything.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you feel like college helped you become more independent in managing your diabetes and how so?
Yeah, I'd say it definitely did. I think not just in terms of diabetes, but in terms of everything. I was much more independent, not having my parents around all the time. But I do think I always still had my parents there for support. If I ever had any questions about anything that I didn't know how to handle on my own, I would always call them and they would always answer and help me with anything. But it definitely was a little different, like 24/7 making decisions all on my own with like no one there to help me through it by my side.
Yeah, so this next question kind of connects the two. So, how did your parents like stay connected to you, and did they get your residence hall like manager's number, or did they have your roommate's number?
My parents had my Dexcom share. So if they could track my blood sugar, if I was ever low during the night and wasn't treating, they could just call me and make sure that I was drinking juice or whatever. And then they also had my RA's number in case of emergency. Luckily, never needed to use that either, but they did have that in case I was ever unresponsive or anything. They didn't get my roommate's number. They just felt a little like they didn't want to put that pressure on her. Like it's not her responsibility if I'm having like it's not like an 18-year-old girl's responsibility to like deal with me. So they just felt a little weird putting that on her. So they just had the RA's number who was there 24/7. And also there's also chances that the roommate might not be there, whereas there's always an RA on call in your dorm. So if there ever was any situations, the RA could have helped.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And when did your parents stop being so involved with your diabetes? Like, when did they kind of ease off and let you kind of take control?
Honestly, they're still involved. I do everything on my own, but they're always just a background support for me. If I need anything, they'll always be there to help me. And that's kind of how it's always been. So I'm so thankful for them for that. But yeah, I feel like even when I'm like so much older, I think I'll still be like asking their advice and things and everything.
Yeah, it's good to just have like always that second opinion, and the people that know you best always like help you out if you need. So yeah. Were you involved in any clubs or like a sorority, and how did you kind of tell people, and did that like impact anything?
Yeah, I was a member of Alpha Phi sorority. I was the director of programming there. So I helped plan social events, helped run the Instagram page and everything like that. Some of the girls that I joined my sorority with, I already knew from first semester at Cornell. We rushed second semester of freshman year. So first semester, my friends most of them joined Alpha Phi with me. And then there was a few other girls that actually I didn't know from first semester that I became friends with. And I kind of just treated that the same way as when I did first semester introducing diabetes. I didn't really like make a big thing out of it. I wasn't like, hi, I'm Summer, I have diabetes, but I did have my insulin devices and things like that on my arm. And they would ask me, and then I would just explain what it was, and it went really smoothly, all of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good strategy. How did you stay on top of making sure you had enough medical supplies? Did you like keep them in a special bin or like the refrigerator in your dorm room? Or did you have some in, like at the medical office? How did you handle that?
I don't know if Cornell had a medical office. I kept everything in my room. I didn't want to like put it somewhere and then not be able to access it at certain times. So I had this like little plastic bin from Bed Bath and Beyond that I kept under. I had like a lofted bed. So I had this bin, and it was literally dedicated to like all my diabetes supplies. It was like Omnipods, Dexcoms, glucose tabs, alcohol swab, everything like that. And then I had a smaller little plastic bin in my dorm fridge that just had like all my insulin vials and then insulin pens in case my Omnipod broke.
Mm-hmm. Last question. Any last words of advice for people who are going into college with diabetes?
I would say I think that everyone is ready for it, whether they know it or not. I thought I was so unprepared, and it actually was so much more seamless and easier than I thought it would be. Everyone who has diabetes is already so involved with their care for their own diabetes, and this is kind of just the next step in life. And you kind of just have to go for it and take it day by day, and it goes so much quicker. And I stress so much about telling people about it and everything, and like everyone's honestly focused on themselves more than you. So you think they're going to think you're so weird or have all these questions, but in reality, it is so easy. And I wouldn't change anything. I'm so glad that going from high school to college, I ended up telling everyone. It made my life so much easier, not having to worry like, oh no, are they going to see my Omnipod on me? So I would just say go for it and don't overthink everything.
Mm-hmm. Good advice. Thank you so much, Summer, for joining me. Everything that you said is very useful, and I'll definitely take those things into consideration. So thank you so much again, and bye.
Of course. Thank you. Bye.